The night the red-blue lights washed over my porch, two bright yellow condemned tags hammered into my cabin door. I thought I was about to lose the one place that finally felt like mine. 3 days later, deputies walked out of the Pinecrest HOA office carrying a jammed paper shredder like a smoking gun, strips of bylaws still stuck in its teeth. That's when I knew the queen of our neighborhood, Brenda Knox, was done pretending her rules were the law. I'm Ethan Cole, and this is how a quiet lakeside life at Maple Ridge Lake turned into a legal street fight. I never asked for, but absolutely finished. Act 1, The Spark. My first week at the cabin was heaven pine sap in the air, the dock creaking like an old friend, coffee steaming on a cold morning. The second week, Brenda showed up with a laminated binder, a smile that didn't touch her eyes, and the confidence of someone who thinks deference is a birthright. "You can't park that commercial truck in your driveway," she said, pointing at my beat-up pickup like it was a tank. Pinecrest, a bylaws. Page 14. "It's my driveway," I said. "Easy. Naive." "Exactly," she replied, "and this is our community." From there, it was a drip campaign, grass too high, flag too large. My fire pit, unapproved burn risk. She told my sister to hush her kids on our dock, like you can volume button a 7-year-old on a summer evening. Every note came with a veiled threat, fees, board hearings, further action. It started to feel less like a neighborhood and more like customs at some private border she controlled. I quit snarking and started documenting photos, timestamps, scans. I labeled the folder Maple Ridge Evidence, not because I planned a war, but because I could feel one circling. The BBQ showdown came fast. 24 friends, burgers, sunset. Brenda paced in with her phone recording and a clipboard tucked tight against her chest. "This gathering wasn't approved," she announced to my lawn, like she was christening a ship. "Which bylaw says I need approval to feed people?" I asked. She flipped pages, didn't answer, switched to threat mode. "If you don't comply, I'll call the sheriff." "Call him," I said, heart thudding but voice low. "Steady, and bring the page number." That night the rain slanted sideways across the lake, and the door flew open without a knock. Brenda crossed my threshold in a slick black raincoat, water pooling under her boots. Trespass dressed as confidence. She froze when she saw the man by my fireplace, the one sipping coffee, warming his hands. "Miss Knox," he said mildly. "Mark Ellis, State Attorney General." The way her jaw clicked shut would have been funny if I wasn't so done being polite. Ellis set his mug down slow. "Deliberate, HOA rules don't supersede state law or private property rights," he said. "We'll be reviewing Pinecrest's enforcement practices." Brenda's eyes did the math, fast and hard. Then she pasted the smile back on and sloshed out into the rain without another word. 48 hours later, a courier slid a notice to vacate under my door. 30 days. 3 vague violations. 0 substantiation. It felt like a dare, like she wanted me rattled and out before anyone asked her hard questions. I didn't rattle. I made tea, scanned the notice, and sent it straight to Ellis's office. CC'd the Northbridge County Sheriff. But Brenda wasn't working alone. Her compliance guy, Colin Pike, showed up the next evening with a flashlight, a tape measure, and a photocopy of the bylaws where the font didn't match. "We need to inspect the interior," he said, trying to step around me. "Authority under a court order," I said, blocking the door. "Phone recording in plain view, or you're leaving." He left, muttering. I recorded that too. At sunrise, a tow truck groaned onto my gravel, hook dangling. Driver chewing gum like he didn't want to be there. "We're here for the pickup," he said. "You got a court order." He looked at a clipboard, looked at me, looked at the camera in my hand, and backed the truck out, apologizing like a man who'd been told the water was warm and just felt ice. I learned something standing on that wet driveway. Speak softer when they get louder. Make them lean in to hear the law. Act 2, the squeeze and the turn. Brenda called an emergency meeting, packed room, folding chairs, neighbors perched on windowsills. She proposed temporary enhanced authority for the president, her words to restrict dock access and utilities for non-compliant residents. Nobody breathed. I raised my hand. "Which bylaw lets you cut utilities?" I said, not sarcastic, just surgical. She waved a photocopy like a talisman. I held up 3 printed versions, official font, watermark in the right corner. Signatures aligned and circled the typo on hers with a red pen. A couple people laughed in that involuntary, "Oh, we see you" way. Her cheeks flushed, and she called the sheriff on me for disruption. Deputy Carlson showed up. Heavy boots, calm eyes. We stepped into the hall, and I handed him my phone. He watched the clip of attempted tow, no order, skimmed screenshots of Brenda's midnight entrance, blinked at the email confirming the AG's involvement. "No one's getting arrested tonight," he said, "and no one is entering anyone's home without a court order." We walked back in together. Brenda pretended she had just decided to adjourn. You could feel the floor shift under her heels. That night, when the rain returned like a second act, I came home to bright warning posters nailed to my door. Condemned unsafe structure. Signed by Inspector C. Pike. A cheap trail camera blinked red from the bushes, eye level with my doorknob. My breath went hot. I took photos close. Closer. Closest. Captured the wrong seal. The wrong font. The misspelling in structural. I called Carlson. He arrived with another deputy, pulled the posters, bagged the camera. "Falsifying public notices is a problem," he said, voice dry as old pine. "We'll write it up." After they left, the quiet came down like a weight. I found the anonymous note under the welcome mat. "Stop now. You're making a mistake." I poured a whiskey I didn't want, leaned against the counter, listened to the rain chew the lake. The doubt arrived like cold through the floorboards. What if losing the cabin is just the start? What if they drag this out until the place you moved to for peace is the reason you never have any again? Maybe I should sell. Maybe Brenda wins a few more months. I walk away, and everybody gets to sleep. I stood there long enough for the ice to melt and the whiskey to taste like water. Then I thought about Evelyn Miller, whose hands shook when she told me Brenda warned she'd reassess her front ramp. I thought about Mr. Jenkins, fined for a leaf rake leaning against a fence. Ben and Lara Wright, told they couldn't walk their rescue dog during quiet hours. None of these people had the time or the stomach for a fight, so Brenda counted on them to feel tired before she ran out of nerve. "Kindness isn't surrender," I said into the empty kitchen. "It's control of the wheel." I opened my laptop and drafted a flyer. "Concerned about HOA actions. Email me confidential." By morning, my inbox looked like a switchboard in a hurricane. Photos, letters, budget PDFs with numbers that didn't match headcount, screenshots of text threats. I made a group chat and, in the oldest small-town magic, printed the flyer and pinned it to the corkboard by the bait shop. Noon brought a caravan of SUVs to my driveway, Brenda up front, Colin behind her, 2 other board members, and a lawyer in a gray suit who looked allergic to weather. "Stop whatever campaign you think you're running." Gray suit, Mr. Hale told me, "This community can make things very difficult for you." "This community is my neighbor Evelyn," I said, not raising my voice. "And she can't afford difficult from you." Deputy Carlson's cruiser ghosted in behind them like we'd rehearsed it, though we hadn't. Brenda tried to pivot to safety concerns. Carlson glanced at the lawyer. "You want to enforce something? Get a court order," he said. "Community standards don't override state law." Word got out. Neighbors stopped to watch. Brenda felt the mirror turn. Authority looks different when it's surrounded by witnesses who've done their reading. 2 days later, Investigator Erin Park from the Attorney General's office knocked on my door, quiet, professional, a notebook already half full. She took copies of everything, thanked me, and headed to the Pinecrest HOA office, the one wedged above the bait shop, where everyone pretends to fish and actually gossips. By dusk, Erin was back with 2 deputies and a court order. I didn't need to read to understand. They walked out carrying 3 shredders, cords dangling, one of them jammed with confetti that used to be documents. The word felony jumped the wet air like a spark off a live wire. People who'd never looked up from their boats were suddenly on the sidewalk, eyes level, not scared hungry for someone to tell them they weren't crazy. Brenda didn't blink. She announced another emergency meeting. "Bring checkbooks," she said. "Fines due. Payment expected." She posted notices in the mail kiosk and taped them to the deli freezer at the bait shop. as if paper could bully people into forgetting what they'd seen. We filled the clubhouse until the walls sweated. She started with a speech about preserving order, then pointed at a donation box labeled "Fines Pay Here." That's when the door opened and Erin Park walked in, rain still in her hair, a folded court order in her hand. Effective immediately. She read, "Pinecrest HOA is prohibited from collecting fines or restricting access pending investigation." Silence. Not applause, just the sound of a room remembering how to breathe. Brenda reached for the gavel. It wasn't time for that anymore. Act 3, the fall. Brenda tried one last swing. "Voluntary contributions," she said, voice tight, "to support community safety efforts." The first envelope lifted from the crowd, but not to the box. Evelyn held it up with both hands, like church tithes. "This is every letter you sent me," she said to Erin. "Not Brenda. The ones that made me afraid of my own front steps." Next to her, Mr. Jenkins raised a folder of photos date-stamped, "Neat." Ben and Lara passed up a printout of the HOA budget with a neon circle around a line item that shouldn't exist. One by one, people stood. And if you've never watched a room of ordinary neighbors choose the truth out loud, you haven't seen a revolution. Brenda's smile couldn't catch. Mr. Hale started a speech about overreach, but Carlson stepped to the aisle, the court order in his palm like a stop sign. Erin's voice never changed pitch. "We have evidence of falsified notices and attempted destruction of records under subpoena," Erin said. "We'll need the HOA seal, meeting minutes, digital access keys, and office keys to preserve evidence." Colin Pike, so cocky with his tape measure, went white around the edges. Erin asked him to step outside for questioning. The door closed softly behind him, like a breath you don't want back. Brenda tapped the gavel, hoping the sound might reverse a tide. It slipped, clacked off the edge, and rolled in a lazy circle until it bumped the clear evidence bag on the table. No one moved. The only sound was the zipper on that bag when Erin opened it. "Miss Knox," she said, "the seal, please." Brenda held it half a second too long, just enough for the story to stick, then dropped it into Erin's hand. Erin nodded at Carlson. He stepped forward and took the ring of office keys, the access card. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to get quieter. I didn't cheer. I didn't smirk. I kept my hands at my sides and let my lungs loosen for the first time in weeks. People looked at me like they wanted me to say something brave or cinematic, but I had nothing left that wasn't simple. "This isn't about me," I said, barely above a whisper. "Never was." Erin sealed the bag. The meeting ended not with applause, but with chairs scraping concrete and rain softening outside, like the weather had been waiting for this moment to settle too. We didn't go out for drinks. There was no victory selfie. I drove back to my cabin, turned on the porch light, and stood on the threshold Brenda had crossed without permission once. The doorframe was still nicked where her rain boot had clipped it. I ran a thumb over the mark and decided to leave it there for a while. A small reminder that even quiet places need you to speak up sometimes. The lake was darker than usual, the constellations low and bright. Pinpricks you can't see when your life's too loud. I brewed coffee I didn't need at that hour, just to smell it. Sat at my table with the evidence folder closed. Not because I was done, but because I wasn't defending the cabin anymore. I was inhabiting it again. There's a difference big enough to sleep in. A week later, new notices went up, this time from the state, about interim management, an audit, a special election. I didn't run for anything. People asked me to, but the cabin taught me what I actually wanted to learn: names at the mailboxes, to fix a wobbling dock board before it throws someone in, to know where the extra propane lives. Brenda's empire fell, not to a louder tyrant, but to a room full of neighbors who remembered they weren't subjects. If you need a neat moral, I can give you one. But the truth is messier and better. I doubted myself in that kitchen, watching the rain and thinking of selling, because fear knows how to sound like reason. And then I remembered Evelyn's ramp, and I remembered the word felony, and I remembered how it felt when Deputy Carlson said the law still meant something here. The doubt didn't vanish. It just got quieter than my spine. That's the win. I kept my voice steady when it mattered, even when I wanted to hand it to someone else to carry. The cabin door swings easy again. The condemned holes are filled, painted over, but if I press my ear to the wood at night, I swear I can hear those nails coming out one by one. The sound of something false letting go. I still keep the folder on a shelf by the Radio Shack flashlight Maple Ridge evidence. Tidy. Finished. Not as a trophy, but as a manual. If the next Ethan needs it, it's there. Font checks, timestamps, court orders. The whole breadcrumb trail from you can't park here to hand over the seal. We're not powerless. We're just sometimes under-organized. In the mornings, I walk the loop by the bait shop. People wave in a new way, like they see me and themselves at the same time. Aaron sends updates, sometimes short and clinical, my favorite kind. Carlson nods when he passes my road. That cop nod that says more than a sentence should. Brenda, I don't know what she's doing. That's not my work anymore. My work is raking pine straw off a safe ramp in front of Evelyn's place when the wind gets uppity. The end of this kind of story isn't fireworks. It's a quiet porch light staying on, storm or no storm. Because the person who lives there gets to decide. That's the victory lap, no lap at all, just staying put. And if you were here right now, I'd hand you a mug, and we'd listen to the evening settle on the lake. And I'd tell you the one line I wish someone had told me on that first bad night. When someone confuses authority with ownership, speak softly and bring receipts.